There was a home that of a Yosef Bey Chamar de Yisrael, and there was wine of a yid in the house. All oivit kechavim. A guy walked into the house, achtel l'dosha bapei, and closed the door behind him. V'hava biza b'dosha. There was a crack in the door, like a little keyhole that you could look in. And ishtakach oivit kechavim the koi ben yidami. And of course, it turned out that there was a guy walking amongst the barrels of wine. So the question is now, do we have to asher the wine? He was secluded there with the wine. So Amarava, call the lahadi biza shari. Any area in the wine cellar where it's along the same line as where the crack is, so you could see the goy from the crack, would be mutter. The high gisa also. But if he was on either side, meaning where if someone would be peeking in, he wouldn't be able to see the goy tampering with the wine, that would be also. So Rashi points out that if it lahadabiz shari, we have a svar of mirsis. When the guy is mirsis, there's no chashash at all that he tampered with the wine, and therefore, Zok Rashi, the wine is even mutter b'shasiya. You could drink the wine, but whatever you can't see, there's no svar of mirsis, and there you have to say that it's also b'hanoah. It's also b'hanoah. I'm sorry, means the guy is afraid to get caught tampering with the wine. So Rashi asks an important kasha, because Rashi says we have other Gemaras that we learned that says that if a goy is found near wine and he doesn't belong in that wine cellar, he's afraid to even be caught in the wine cellar, and therefore he won't touch it. So let's look at Rashi, the third Rashi from the top. So effect Rashi, how could it be that it will be mutar b'hanoah? If it's hagit, it's also, but the wine that you can't see from the crack is also b'hanoah. We said that if a guy doesn't belong there and he's afraid to get caught there, he wouldn't have touched anything. Zokt Rashi, nitbas al knisasa. You have to say that this guy would not get into trouble if he was merely found there. Why would he not get into trouble? Zokt Rashi, kigoyin. Maybe the guy also had some ownership in the wine, so therefore he would never be uncomfortable, in trouble if he was caught there. He had decent reason to be there. If merely him being there could get him into trouble, all the wine is usher, because we say he's so nervous about being caught, he wouldn't dare touch anything. Okay, beautiful. So it doesn't mean that you were watching him the whole time while he was there through the crack, even if no one was there at all. But since there is a crack, he will be careful not to tamper any wine that he'll notice could be discovered if somebody happens to be watching him. Zog to Gemara Vayte. Ahu Chamar de Yisrael. Davi Yosef bevesa. Davi Dair Yisrael bel Yoina v'avet kechavim betachtoina. So a Jew had the second floor. A guy owned the main level, and there was wine in the upper level. And what happened was, Shamu Koil Tigra, there was some type of fight outside. So everybody from into the house rushes normally out to see what's going on. The Shamu Koil Tigra, Anofki, they went out. Kodim also Oived Kechavim Achtel Adosha Bapei. The guy returned to his house before the Judith, and he closed the door behind him. So now we need to be concerned that maybe he went upstairs and touched the wine. Omarava Chamar Shari. The wine is mutter once again. Meimer Omar, the guy will say, just like I came in earlier than him, I didn't notice him. Maybe Kadim Vasa Yisrael, maybe the Jew came in while I was distracted by the commotion. Who said I was the first one to go in? Maybe he was the first one to go in. He's not sure, therefore he won't sneak upstairs to jeopardize his neighbor's wine, because there's a very strong possibility that he will get caught. Hahu Ushbiza. There was a place where they would, I guess, store wine, where there was wine that belonged to a Jew there. And the guy was caught sitting amongst the barrels. So the question is, do we have to be choshi that he tampered with the wine? Now the wine's asher. No. This is the famous Gemara, which a lot hinges on. It all depends on what would happen if he would get caught. If he would be considered a ganav and he can possibly be prosecuted, then shari, because he's nervous. But viloi, if he had business being there, then it will be aser. Okay. Let's just see the next Gemara, and then Rashi is going to elaborate, which is going to be important. And Rashi keeps on saying that in all these cases that we've learned today, where the Gemara uses the word Aser Bahana, where the Gemara uses the words Aser, it means even Bahana, and we paskin like Rava in all these cases. There was a house with wine. Again, the guy was found there amongst the jugs. If he has an excuse why he's there, he wouldn't get into trouble, and Rashi will elaborate on what that means exactly. Chamer Aser, Viloi, Chamer Shari. Zokt Rashi, he is leil ishtamute. V'loimer, when they catch him, he could say, Lakach nichnasti. I have a good reason why I was here. If he has a reasonable explanation why he's there, so he won't get caught red-handed, then some chadai table mercies. He's not nervous while he's in, because he knows even if he's caught, he can explain why he's there. And meanwhile, he'll touch things. Chances are, why did he go in there? He went in there because he wanted to be menasach to wine. What else is he going to do there? What other business does he have there? V'sover, he holds. If they catch me in there, I'll come up with an excuse as to why I was here, and I'll be okay. I'll cover for myself. Even though he will have no reasonable explanation as to why he touched the Jew's wine, he might only have a reasonable explanation why he was in that room in the first place. It still is also the wine because there's a svara that he's coming to be minasech. We have to think about it. What's he doing in there? He has no business in there. He obviously went there to make trouble. And therefore, since he has what he thinks is a reasonable excuse why he's in that room, he's not nervous while he's in the room. So therefore, he will quickly tamper with some wine. And therefore, the wine becomes aser. What about what we learned yesterday? That you're allowed to let a guy stay in your store if he doesn't know when you're coming back, if you're Yosy that we just learned yesterday. So the big difference. The Hasam, given the Bershus aisle, the Adin on my aisle, yesterday, when he was in the store, we know why he was in the store. Whatever the reason, the Jews leaving is saying, watch my wine while I go. He has business being there. So therefore, Kozman Shalohi Diyai Shemaflig Mutter. Well, I guess it's a public place, but the thing is he has business being there. If someone is there and his business being there, we don't right away jump to conclusions that he tampered with the wine. He was here for a reason. So it takes a little bit more to make us really be choshesh that he touched the wine. The Sover Inagana Hashta also Bechazli. And there you have, we don't have a strong reason to believe that the guy can't be tampered because we know the guy is there for a reason, A. And B, the guy is afraid of the Yosy v'nichnas. So therefore, it's mutter over there. But in our case here, he had no reason to come. So we have to ask ourselves, why did he come for? He obviously was coming to tamper with the wine. Be less latelish than mute shari. But if he would have no way to explain while he was there, if he was caught, then it would be mutter. Even the bolu al kadisasoi, since he's afraid of getting caught merely being there, mirses v'loinaga. So you still have the svara. What else did he come for if not to do damage? But you also have a svara that he's going to be very careful of what he does and how he does because he can easily get caught at any moment. Okay. Zok the Gemara weiter. Meisefek Gemara. Ninal hapundik. What if the pundik? So Rashi says there was a little inn where there was wine there. And the guy was there alone with the wine. Or the Yid told the guy, stand outside and watch the front door. Right? Rashi says, stand on the outside, also it's going to be usher. Zok Rashi, we're afraid he went in. Once he says the word shmor, once the Yid tells the guy shmor, the guy already has a certain level of calm that the Jew is not coming back for a while. So my lafreik the Gemara, Apal Gab, the less lay lish demute. If he was found inside, he would have absolutely no explanation as to why he was inside. Yet we still see that it's going to be also. Zok Gemara. I'm sorry, the last leish mute. Normally, if it's last leish we mutter, here you still see what it was. This case where it says it's going to be usher is only if, had he been caught inside, he would have had an explanation, a reason why he was there, and he wouldn't have gotten into trouble, and that's our chayshish. But if we know that he is afraid to be seen inside, then that in and of itself is a protection. That's the slur of Mirshas that the guy wouldn't have done. Who Yisrael, the Ovid Kacham, there was a yid of the guy, Davi Yisivi v'Kashasu Chamer. They were sitting and drinking wine together. Shama Yisrael Kal Tzaluye Beknishta. He heard Atzeinta, they needed a minion for Mincha. So he went out to daven Mincha. Kom va'azal, he went to daven Mincha. Amar Rava said, Chamra Shari. Again, the wine is mutter. The guy was left alone with the wine. Meimar Amar. Hashta mitkele lechamre v'hadar asi. The guy doesn't know how long Mincha takes. Since he has no idea how long davening takes, he's afraid the guy is afraid that he could come back at any minute, and therefore it's like a yaitz of nichlas, and the guy won't touch it. Who Yisrael v'Kachavim? Davi Yosef Yisivi ba'arba. They were in a boat. Shama Yisrael kol shipurei devei shimshi. He heard the sounds of shipura devei shimshi. Rashi says the shofar announcing that it's Erev Shabbos. They used to blow the shofar in cities were so to tell the inhabitants, tell people that Shabbos is coming. So Nafak va'azal. So he got off the ship and he went to prepare for Shabbos. Amarava. Now this really sounds like he's leaving for an extended period of time. So here you really think the wine is also. Nevertheless, Amarava Chamra Shari. Why? Meimer Amar Hashta Mitka Chamra Avoda also is going to come. It's Shabbos. He's not coming back on the ship, so the guy should be sure and confident that he's not going to come back, and therefore the wine should be also. Amar Li Isa Giyura once told me over. He gave us a little bit of a perspective of how Goyim perceive Yidden. And this is what Isa Giyura said. Ki Avinin Bar Miyusan, when I was still a Goy, we would always say, as Goyim, Yehudoi Loimenatri Shabbata. They don't keep Shabbos. The Imenatri Shabbata, if they actually kept Shabbos, Kama Kisi Kamashtaki B'Shuka. You know how often it happens where someone's on his way home with his money and he doesn't realize the time and it gets dark and suddenly he realizes that it's Shabbos and he's carrying? That should have happened. How come he never find wallets all over the street? It should happen from time to time where Yidden have to drop whatever they have and continue walking. Since that doesn't happen, it shows that all Yidden are rebelach. They do the moifis of Shabbos Ahin, Shabbos Her, and they take the wallet with them. So that means, the Jews, they say they're makbid on Shabbos, but they're not so careful when it comes to Shabbos. But the problem is, he's a goy. He doesn't know that even if you have your wallet on you coming into Shabbos, there is a way to bring it legally. And that's why you don't find wallets. We all look at Shabbos. If you find a wallet on Shabbos, you don't have to make a moifis of Shabbos hin, Shabbos aher. Rather, you move it less than 4 amos at a time. That's not also midaraisa, and because of this hefsid, they will matter it. So the guy thinks that the Jew doesn't keep Shabbos. That's not true. He keeps Shabbos, but the kiss isn't a good litmus test if Klal Yisrael is mechabit Shabbos and Shayva Shabbos, because there's a legal way to retrieve that wallet. So therefore, the Goyim were under a false perception that the Yidden don't keep Shabbos. But that works to our advantage, because if someone left a ship and left wine there, the wine will be mutter. Why? Because the guy thinks that the Yid won't keep Shabbos, and the guy thinks that the Yid will come back. Who are they? They were in a wine cellar where they store wine, and they heard a lion roar. So what you do when you hear a lion roar is you hope the lion doesn't see you and you run for your life. So Shama Ovid Kachavim, what did the guy do? Tasha Benidani, he hid amongst the barrels in hope that the lion wouldn't find him. Amarava, Chamer Shori, the wine would be mutter. Meimor Amar, the guy will say, the same way I'm hiding here amongst the barrels, there's probably a Jew on the other side of this barrel. Ichanami Yisrael Achayrai V'Kachazili. There's probably a Jew right there, also hiding from the same lion, and he probably could see what I'm doing, so I wouldn't dare. This is already a wild Gemara. There was a band of Ganovim that came to attack Pumbedisa, and they went into people's basements. And upaschu chavisa tuva, they opened up many barrels in the basements over there. And the question is, now we have a gang of robbers run through a city, open up all the barrels. It seems like they've ousted all the barrels, all the goyim. Rav said the Chamer Shari. My timer, Ruba Ganvi Yisrael Ninu. Most Ganovim are Jews. So yes, they opened up your barrels, but you don't have to worry about Yain Nesach. So first of all, we have to qualify this. It just means in the city of Pumbedisa itself. Pumbedisa was a really rough city, and most of the Ganovim in Pumbedisa were Jews. So therefore, you can assume it's the Jews that rummaged through everything. Now, the question that you're going to ask is, you're right, they're not touching on Yain Nesach. But why were they rummaging through barrels? So Rashi is going to tell us later that what Jews used to do is the way they would hide their money for safekeeping is they would put them into empty barrels of wine. So they were popping open all the barrels because they knew one of these barrels probably doesn't have wine in it. That's where the cash is. There was a similar story in Ardoi where Ganovim barraged through town and wreaked havoc in the city. And Shmuel said that wine was mutter. But in the Hardah, it wasn't Rav Gan Yisrael. So the question is, what was Shmuel's justification for being matter the wine? If Goyim came running through people's wine cellars and opened these wines. Commanded Kumar, is it Rabbi Eliezer, Damer Suffolk Biatar? Rabbi Eliezer holds, if there is a valley where a lot of people have fields there, and there's fields growing, and we know that in one of those fields there was a mace buried, but we don't know where in the field, and we don't know which field. And it says that Tanan, we learned Hanichnas Lebika b'Moisak Shamim. If someone went into the Bika b'Moisak Shamim, and b'Moisak Shamim is an important piece of information. Why? Because b'Mois Hachama, where there's no planting going on, no one's makbid of other people walking through their fields. So every field is like a Rosh Hashanah. So any Safek Tumah is automatically Svei Kaitar, because Safek Tumah b'Rosh Hashanah is Svei Kaitar. But here it's in B'Yotzak Shamim, where people are makbid not to let people trample through their fields and damage their crops. So now say Rosh Hashanah, and we know Safek Tumah that occurs in Rosh Hashanah is Svei Kaitar. So here you have a guy walking into a bikah, doesn't remember exactly which field he went into. V'tumah b'sada ploinus, and we know there's tumah in a certain field. The Yomar, and he said, Halachti b'makam alos, I was in this general area, in this bikah, but ve'ein yodeya im nechnasti la'oisei sada im lo nechnasti. I don't know if I was in the field that has it near the Safek Tumah. I don't know if I was in the field that had this mace buried there. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, it's tar. You know why? Safek bia tar. Safek magatame. If you know you were in that field and you only have one Safek, did I touch the mace? Then you will be tamei out. Safek tamei b'shus hayachid tzvekei tamei. But if you don't even know if you were in that field, Rashi learns, not Tosfos, but Rashi learns that has a din of a svek sveka, and a svek sveka is going to be matar even by Safek tamei b'shus hayachid. So let's see Rashi. Here it is. Have a svek sveka. Safek Yisrael, Safek avik nechav. It's a svek sveka. So Rashi is going a little bit on later. So Safek bia tar, because could be he didn't even walk into that field, and even if he walked into the field, maybe he didn't touch the tumah. So Zok to Gemara, is that the reason why Shmuel is matir this wine? Because it's a svek sveka. Safek if it's a yid, Safek if it's a goy, and even if it's a goy, did he touch it? Zok to Gemara loy. Shiny hasam, kivon the ika de paschi l'shum mamina havela svek sveka. Zok Rashi, is it a svek? It's a svek sveka. A Safek Yisrael. Since it's a success of Safek Yisrael, Safek of Chavim, even in the Hardah, it wasn't Roiv Gan Yisrael, but they were Ganovim that were Yisrael, so there becomes now a Safek who opened these barrels. And even if the guy was the one who opened the barrel, Safek Naga, Safek Leim Naga, maybe he never touched the wine. But Ubaha, Filu Rabban and Moedu, there everybody will be Moedu. So therefore, you don't have to go according to Rabbi Eliezer, to who says Safek Bia Tahar. Even according to the Rabbanan, who hold Tzvali Tami, here it's even worse because here you have this fixed Sveka. V'chi pligi Rabbanan alei Rabbi Eliezer, and where the Rabbanan argue Rabbi Eliezer, that's heicha demal yisada tuma. That's if the sada tuma is full tummy. The Allah lo evshid lo hail v'leka lechatafik. So therefore, we're offering a new pshat in the machloikis between Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanan over there. It's not because of a svek sveka. It's a case where the entire field, if you even stepped on that field, you're for sure Tomei. And there, Rabbi Eliezer is matir and the Rabbanan answers. But in the case where it's a real svek sveka, that even if it was a goy, could be the goy didn't touch the wine, then you could be matir even according to the Rabbanan. Zok have a svek sveka. Our case would be a svek sveka. Okay, Gavalti. Zok to Gemara Viter. Hahi Rabisa. There was, as David's Shviger used to say, there was an udala, a female shiksa, we called it an udala. There was an udala, the ishtakach, the hava beidani. She was also found amongst barrels of wine. But it was even worse. She was holding the foam. You know, when the wine ferments, it foams. She had foam in her hand, so she clearly now touched the wine. Rava held the wine was mutter. You might wonder, why is Rava pasking all these shilas? Very simple. He keeps on pasking that it's mutter. So naturally, everyone's going to go ask him their shilas. So he says this is mutter too. Why? Because Ema magve de chavisa shaklase. Let's say that she never touched any wine. She just took the foam, and that wouldn't be considered touching the wine. So even if you look, you don't find any wine in the barrels. So what is the likelihood that she didn't touch the wine? Amar is Ramila. She opened up one barrel and she found foam, or maybe she didn't even open it, but she found foam, and therefore we don't have to be worried. Now here we have a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos, if it just happened to be a story with a young girl, or if it's only mutter because it's a young girl. So I'm sorry. Right. So Rashi says, well, it can't be infant can't take. I mean, look a young girl. I don't know. Yeah. Let's see Rashi. Let's see Tosfos. Pirsha Kuntres Dafka Tinoikos. Why? She'enu Yodas B'tiv Nisa. The reason why we picked the Tinoikos is since she doesn't know anything about Nisach, she's not going to try to touch it. So there's always less of a chash when it's a young girl who doesn't even understand from Avoda Zara. So that's why we were able to be soymich that she didn't touch the wine. Avol naira gedoyla, but if she would have been an adult, loy talin lakula. That's what Rashi says. That's the third Rashi on the Amud. However, miu loy matinu chiluk zeh b'shemakim. I didn't find this such a chiluk. I never find to make a distinction. L'chein nirad lavdavka revitza huadin gedoyla. The Gemara relates the story as it occurred. According to the Rashi, it doesn't matter because nowadays of Tosfos, in the modern days of the Bali Tosfos, nowadays Rashi had a big kula when it came to Yain Nesach, and he said that nowadays Goyim don't even really practice this Avodah Zara; they're just doing it because it's minig avesem b'yadayim, and therefore there's much of a less of a chashash. Who Musa? The Salakul Narda. Musa Rashi says Rosh Hagai Sartzava. So a general came through with his army. He came through Narda, and Paschu Chavisa Tuva. They opened up a lot of barrels. He Aser Abdimi Amar. When Abdimi came, he said, "Uvza Hava Kamed Rabbi Lozer." There was a similar story that happened in Rabbi Lozer. Vishara, and Rabbi Lozer was matir. V'lo Yodana, but I don't know for sure what the reason why Rabbi Lozer was matir. And depending on what Rabbi Lozer's reasoning is, it might apply to this situation, and we could be matir here as well, or it might not. What is the suffix? Imishum de Savar La Rabbi Eliezer, the Yomar Safak Bia Tahar. Why was he matir? Was he matir because of Rabbi Eliezer Shita of Safak Bia Tahar? And then over here it would be Aser, because here was Vade Bia, right? They came in and opened up the barrels. Or Imishum de Savar Ruba de Asli Bahadi Pulmuso Yisrael. Or did Rabbi Eliezer hold that Roiv of the soldiers that are conscripted to the army and are coming with the pulmus were Jewish people. And therefore, if the Jewish people, they wouldn't have asked the wine there. And then who did, we can say over here, they didn't ask the wine. Frek the Gemara, Ihachi, Hai Suffolk Bia, Suffolk Magahu. If you're going to tell me that if you're going to tell me that he's only Samech on Rabbi Eliezer, and by Rabbi Eliezer, it's a Rabbi Eliezer's matter, even though it's a suffix, if it's a suffix if he touched the tumah, well, the problem is what did he say? What did Rav Dimi say? Imishum de Savalak Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar Suffix Bia Tahar. If you're going to tell me that it's a case where if you're going to be Rabbi Eliezer matter, even though we know he went into that field, so then it's not a suffix bia, then it's a suffix maga. So therefore, it should be much worse than Rabbi Eliezer's case. So even according to Rabbi Eliezer, it shouldn't have been mutter. Zok to Gemara, kiva the maftachi tuva, since there's many more barrels that this legion opened up many more barrels than they would have possibly needed to drink. Clearly, they weren't looking to drink. They weren't looking to touch the wine. Ema adaited the moment apostle. They were probably just opening it up the barrel to look for cash. Uchasafik bia dummy, and therefore we could say it's like Suffolk bia. So let's go back. And if it's Suffolk bia tar, over here it's Suffolk bia, or imishum the Suffolk the ruba the. Look, so I'm sorry, I read the Gemara completely wrong. In this particular case, this Palmusa were going. They were not eaten. And Reb Dimi said, I know Rabbi Elazar in a similar scenario was mater. And I'm not sure if Rabbi Elazar was mater because that Palmusa that came in Rabbi Elazar's days, they were eaten. And that's what he was saying. Or if he did it because of Rabbi Eliezer, and if it was because of Rabbi Eliezer, then it would be mutter. Because Rabbi Eliezer said if it's a suffix if he walked into that field. And even if he went into the field, it's a suffix if he touched the wine. That would, if he touched the tumah, so there that would be comparable to our scenario because here we have a suffix if the guy touched the wine. The problem is, fact the Gemara, in our case, it's not like Rabbi Eliezer's case. In Rabbi Eliezer's case, a suffix if he walked into that field, and even if he walked into that field, it's a suffix if he touched the tumah. But in our case, he had the guy murvada in the basements opening up barrels of wine. So you're missing one suffix. How could you be matter over here? Since they opened up many barrels, their intent clearly isn't to drink wine or to touch wine, it's to find the cash. And therefore it's Kasafik Biyadami, there's a suffix if they even wanted to touch. Hahu Misubisa, the Mosrila Klida. Okay, what happened is there was a Meicheres Yain Bechanus. There was a woman who sold wine and she had to go away. So she gave to another female goiter the key to watch. So this woman had no business being in this store because I didn't ask you to watch my store. I just asked you to hold on to my key. So how much the mashla klida maftecha loivedes kechav. She gave the key to someone who had a business. She watched keys. She was a key watcher. So she turned her key over. So this woman can technically get into her store, but she wouldn't want to be caught there because she had no business being there. All she was hired to do was hold on to the key. There was a discussion in the Bismedish about a story that happened similar to this. And they said, all she got was commissioned to watch the keys, and therefore she has no business being in the wine cellar, and therefore we'll say she's mirsus. We learned a similar case. What if a Yid gives his keys to his food warehouse over to an Amoritz? Normally an Amoritz who comes in contact with his food will be mitama them. Here we say Tairoisov Tahiris. We're not worried that the Amoritz came in and touched anything. The Amoritz only was commissioned to hold on to the keys. He had no right, no authorization to enter this place with the Tahiris. So Zok to Gemara, Hashta Tairoisov Tahiris. If something becomes Tomei, it's Tomei Midaraisa. This is a Shaila of a Suffolk Deraisa. Nevertheless, you say for sure, even by a Deraisa, it's Tar. So Yayin Nesach, my boy, if it's merely a Shaila of Yayin Nesach, where this woman gave over her keys to watch to a Shiksa, where it's only a Shaila of Derabanan, because it's not Mamish Yayin Nesach, it's really a Shaila of Stam Yayin, so for sure, it shouldn't be a problem. Zokt Gemara, remember that Taharais Alimi Yayin Nesach? Are you telling me that there's more of a svara to aser by Taharais than there is by Yayin Nesach? We're in. That's exactly what I'm saying. You got me loud and clear. The Itmar, I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate this from a brisa. Or this is Itmar is a lashon Gemara. Chater shecholka b'mesipas. What if you have a Talmud Chacham and a Namaretz that share a field and they split it in half with a flimsy type of gate? We learned about a Mesipas of a Basra. It's a very flimsy type of partition that you can easily reach over, but that's how they split their field. Omar Rav said, if the Talmud Chacham has Taharis on one side of the fence and the Amoritz is on the other side of the fence, we're afraid the Amoritz touched the Taharis, even though there was this little flimsy fence. But if it was a goy, it doesn't make yayin nesach. So you see only clear from Rav this distinction that we're more machmer legabe tuma than we are legabe yayin nesach. Rabbi Yochanan Amar af taharosav taharis. Rabbi Yochanan says no, even the taharis are tahar. So now we're going to go off on the tangent. We already proved our point that you see, according to Rav, we're more machmer with taharis than we are with yayin nesach. But now the Gemara is going to challenge this brisa, nothing to do with the child of yayin nesach anymore. Meisvei hapanimis shel chaver v'chetel shel amoritz. Let's say that they were two properties. In order to get in to the one property, you had to go through the other property. So the innermost property belonged to the chaver. The outer property belonged to the amoritz, which means the amoritz never had any business walking into the chaver's property, but the chaver regularly walked through the amoritz's property to get to his property. So the halacha is oisei chaver shotech sham peres umaniach sham kelim v'af al pi sheyodi shel amoritz bagas l'sham. The chaver couldn't put out his peres in his property that the amoritz has no access to, even though he's placing them close enough within an arm's reach of the separation. So if the chaver is in the inner property, he could put right up against the wall, he can put up his taharis, and he doesn't have to worry that the amoritz leaned over it. Didn't Rav say that if there's just a little fence in between, we are concerned that he would lean over? So it's Shver on Rav who says that we're always choshet that the amoritz will lean over into the chaver's property to be mitama. Rav, no. Shani hasam shenitbis alav keganev. If I'm in the inside property, he's in the outside property, he has no business ever even reaching over there at all. And therefore, we're not choshesh that he will. But in the case of the Mesipis, where it's a flimsy little gate, it's normal for people to reach over the gate sometimes. So therefore, the Metzias is what changes here, and that's why in one place we're choshesh and in another place we're not. Toshma, let's have the kasha the other way. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel argues there, he says, Gaga shel chaver l'mayla migaga shel amoritz. What if they had two houses, but the roof of the chaver was higher than the roof of the amoritz? So you have two houses side by side. One's, let's say, a single story, one's a two-story. Oisei chaver shotech sham peres. The chaver is allowed to put peres up on the high roof. The guy's a story lower. Umaniach sham kelim, and he can put his kelim there, and we don't need to worry that the amoritz will touch it. Uvad sheloite yadei shel amoritz magas l'sham. Oh. The Narishim Gamliel says is you can't put it right up along the edge where the amoritz can reach up and touch it. You have to set it back so that there's no way the amoritz could reach it. So it's kachal Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan said with the case of the Mesipas, we're not worried that the amoritz will lean over it. Yet over here you are worried. No, shani hasam the ish leishtamute meimer amar imtzure kam imtzura. In the case of your roof being higher than my roof, it's possible that the amoritz is saying, I'm measuring the height, how much airspace I have. He has an excuse that he's measuring to do construction. He's trying to do some drawings. That's an excuse. That's why you have to keep the tires far away from him. But in the case of the Mesipas, where there's no reason why you should be reaching over, there will be mitar. Tashma, gaga shel chaver b'tzad gaga shel amoritz. Oy say chaver shetech sham peris umaniach sham kelim ve'afal pishi yodoi shel amar magas l'sham. So this is a brisa that says differently than Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. For like the Gemara kasha l'Rav, this will be shver on Rav because Rav holds when it comes to an outer property and an inner property, according to Rav Holt, there's a mirsus, right? We don't with Rav, there's a mirsus, only Mesipus that he said that he's concerned about. Rav, Lav Ika, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, the Koikava. See, Rav can say, I work with Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, who else, even with the upper and lower level, you still have to keep your paris far away from the edge of the roof so that Amar couldn't touch it. So Anadami, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. So we were able to find for Rabbi Yochanan to work with the Tana who hold that it was mutter, I'm sorry, that it was usher, but Rav who holds that it's usher with two properties, he will hold like Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, in fact, that it's usher. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah, then we'll stop. Bolshish shenichnas halir. Bolshish is Rashi says chayil. It's an army. Al shem shemachapshim v'choisrin karli bolshish. They wreak havoc and they destroy the city, stealing everything in their path. B'shas shalom, if they're coming through in a peaceful time where they're not running from an enemy or running to an enemy, then chavias psuchas will be asuras because we assume they touched them, they raided them, they looted them. But it's assumas b'taris. But b'shas mulchama, where they're on the run, they're under pressure, they don't have time to do any type of nisuch. They're in a rush. They're under pursuit or they're pursuing, and therefore we don't have to be choshesh to touch the one. Okay, we'll stop here, B'Hashem, and we'll be mamshich with Ayin Aleph tomorrow.